Hi guys, welcome back. Today I'm reading Forced on Me. This is part 2 of chapter 1. I think that technology likes me today, so I hope this will export when I'm done. Yeah. Also, if it sounds louder, it's because I have my earbuds in. So, yay! Okay. I'm gonna start now. The first person to leave the building was a red and white-haired boy with heterochromatic eyes, one gray and one blue. He was Endeavor's son, Shoto Todoroki. I saw something on the news about Endeavor's youngest son aspiring to be a hero. I didn't expect him to be in my class, though. Not that I don't think it's cool. He seems cool, literally, but he also seems kind of emotionless. Maybe something happened with his father. I won't ask unless it's a necessary situation. Todoroki came and sat a few inches away from us. Are the others on their way? Aizawa asked Todoroki. Todoroki just nodded in confirmation. Okay, good. The next person to leave the building was Kachan. I groaned when I saw him in all his spiky-haired glory. Hitoshi had raised a questioning eyebrow at me. The blonde boy that's making his way over here is my childhood friend, I said, pausing so Hitoshi would understand what I was saying. Hitoshi moved his lips in an O shape as he nodded. His quirk is explosion. He sweats a nitroglycerin sweat that he can ignite to make explosions from his palms. The more sweat he has built up, the bigger the explosions, I explained as Kachan got closer. Before Hitoshi could say anything, I was already tackling him to the ground to avoid getting either of our heads exploded. Deku! Kachan yelled, standing wide and ready to fight. I grabbed Hitoshi tighter, making sure if Kachan set off another explosion, I would be the only one to get hit. Kachan was raising his open palm to strike me with an explosion when he suddenly stopped. I let out a sigh of relief. Aizawa had activated his quirk. Eraserhead then proceeded to wrap Kachan up in his capture weapon, which made me feel safe enough to move off of Hitoshi. But Hitoshi moved his hands to wrap around my back, making me unable to get up. I looked down at him and he gave me a small, reassuring smile. I smiled back and rested my head on his chest. Bakugo, Aizawa said, almost growling. You can't use your quirk on your classmates. That explosion could have killed Midoriya if he didn't move. Don't you want to be a hero? Act like it. He shouldn't be here, Kachan yelled, fighting against Aizawa's capture weapon. He's quirkless. There's no way he passed the entrance exam. He cheated. The entrance exam is biased against mental quirks and the quirkless, but it's not impossible to pass without a quirk, I said, still not looking at Kachan. Me passing the entrance exam proves that it's possible for others to pass without a physical quirk. Midoriya's right, Aizawa said. The entrance exam is biased towards physical quirks, so when someone without a physical quirk passes, it shows they truly fought for their spot in the hero course. Now, can I trust you to not kill Midoriya if I deactivate my quirk and let you out of my capture weapon? Yes, Sensei, Kachan grumbled. Aizawa let Kachan out of his capture weapon. Hitoshi and I sat up. Kachan growled at me before sitting down several feet away from us. Well, he seems like a joy, Hitoshi drawled. I laughed. Tell me about it, I said through laughter. I've had to deal with him for over a decade. Damn, I feel bad for you, Hitoshi said, shaking his head. I made a fake sniff sound. It wasn't all bad, I whined. For 3 years. When we were 3. Are you saying he's been an asshole since you were 4? Hitoshi asked, jaw hanging ever so slightly. Yes, I said, smiling a nervous smile. Oh my god, what is your life, Izuku? Hitoshi asked, shaking his head. Not normal, I said, shrugging. Huh, Hitoshi said sarcastically. I don't see how you're not normal. I mean, your dad's just a famous quirk analyst. You were childhood friends with an asshole who bullied you. And, let me think. Oh, right. Your mom is a famous lawyer and nurse. I don't see how you're not normal. How did you know my mom's a lawyer and nurse? I asked, tilting my head in curiosity since I knew it wasn't common for people who knew who my father was to know who my mom was. There are hundreds of articles about how your parents have been married for almost 20 years now, Izuku, Hitoshi deadpanned. What do you mean, how did I know? I laughed at that. Okay, fair point. More people from my class started walking up in groups. I saw the girl who I saved at the entrance exam. Can't read. I saw the girl who I saved at the entrance exam, and I waved to her. She came up to me and Hitoshi smiling. Hi, she exclaimed. Hitoshi winced slightly. Hi, Uraraka, I said, smiling and laughing slightly. She looked at me surprised. How do you know my name? She asked, tilting her head as she sat down next to me and Hitoshi. Oh, I looked at the seating chart that Nezu sent out, and I looked at who was sitting in what seat and matched names to faces, I said, smiling sheepishly. Oh, she said, suddenly understanding. I didn't even think about that. You're so smart. I didn't get your name. I mean, Aizawa said your name, but I was still in shock from you yelling at everyone to be quiet. Oh, yeah, my name's Izuku Midoriya, but you can call me Izuku, I said, smiling. Well, it's nice to meet you, Izuku, she exclaimed. And what's your name? She asked, turning to Hitoshi. Oh, I'm not in your class. My homeroom teacher just sent me to watch you guys. My name's Hitoshi Shinzo, he said, deadpan. Oh, well, it's nice to meet you, Shinzo, she exclaimed. Is Ida going to join us? I asked. He hasn't come out yet. Ida, I don't know everyone's names yet. Who? Uraraka asked sheepishly. Oh, right, I said. He's the one with dark blue hair and glasses. He was yelling at Kachan, or Bakugo. Oh, him, Uraraka said, humming in realization. Probably if he wants to hang out with you. I mean, you seem really cool. I smiled. Okay, he might not join us, though. He'll probably stand in front of Aizawa waiting for directions. He seems like a rule-abiding student who is always ready to learn. Uraraka laughed. Yeah, that was my first impression of him, too. Wait, is Ida related to Ingenium? His agency's the Ida 10 agency, right? Hitoshi asked. Yeah, he's Ingenium's little brother. Ingenium was actually the hero to inspire Ida to become a hero, I said, leaning against Hitoshi, which was weird since I didn't normally like physical touch. Nor did I normally trust people as easily as I was trusting Hitoshi, but he just makes me feel safe. How do you know so much about everyone? Hitoshi asked, slightly turning his head to look at me. I've met a lot of heroes since my dad's a Quirk analyst, and Ingenium is one of the heroes my dad did analysis for. Ingenium talked a lot about Ida when he and my dad started having casual conversation while waiting for their equipment to start working. He was talking really highly about Ida. I thought it was really sweet, I said, smiling at the heartwarming memory. Oh, yeah, I forgot your dad's a Quirk analyst. That's so cool, Uraraka said excitedly. Yeah, I said, putting on a fake smile. I can't let anyone know I don't like him. They'll start asking questions I won't be able to answer. I could tell Hitoshi was looking at me skeptically, but I didn't pay any attention to it. If I ignore him, then maybe his skepticism will go away. Hello, Midoriya, I heard a familiar voice say. It was Ida, I realized, walking towards our little trio. Hey, Ida, I said, smiling. You can call me Izuku, by the way. Oh, okay, well, hello, Izuku, Ida said, smiling. Ida joined us in our conversation while we waited for the rest of the class to join us. It took another 10 minutes after Ida came out before the rest of the class joined us. Hitoshi sighed as Aizawa made his way towards the front of our gathered cluster of students. I have to go stand with Aizawa. Good luck, guys, Hitoshi said, getting up and walking towards Aizawa. Aizawa nodded at him as he stood next to him. Okay, Aizawa said, flashing his quirk to quiet everyone down. It worked. Everyone flinched at the loss of their quirks, except for me. Instead of going to the assembly, we'll be doing a quirk apprehension test. Several people groaned. Aizawa flashed his quirk again. Bakugo, he said, holding out a ball. You placed first in the entrance exam. What was your longest ball toss in middle school? Like 27 meters, Kachan said, standing in front of Aizawa with his arms crossed. Okay, Aizawa said, handing Kachan the ball. I want you to throw this ball while using your quirk. The only rule is you can't step outside of the white circle. Got it? Got it, Kachan said, smirking as he walked towards the white circle. I covered my ears since I knew how loud Kachan's explosions would be. Hitoshi and Aizawa both gave me weird looks, but they didn't say anything. Kachan threw the ball, and, just as I expected, he used a huge explosion that was very loud. 705.2 meters, Aizawa said, holding up a screen with Kachan's distance thrown. Today, this quirk apprehension test will show me where you're at with your quirks. There were several people saying how fun this test sounded and how excited they were to start. I groaned, both from the loud noise and from everyone's excitement. They don't realize that the hero course isn't just fun and games. It won't be fun when they see someone on the brink of death now, will it? Enough, Aizawa said, flashing his quirk yet again. Since you think that school here at UA will be all fun and games, whoever places last will be expelled. Aizawa smirked as everyone cried out in distress. I was the only one who didn't react, since I was used to teachers being like this. I could tell Aizawa was different from my last teachers, though. The first test was the 50-meter dash. The first pair was Ida and Suyu. She'd insisted on people calling her that from the conversations I heard her talking in. Ida was getting his engines ready while Suyu was getting into a leaping position, like a frog about to start hopping. Ida's quirk was pretty obvious. He had engines in his legs, which made it easy for him to run fast. Suyu's quirk was harder to figure out, but after analyzing her, I could tell she had a frog mutation quirk. What gave it away? Well, for one, the position she got into when she was about to start running. She has a tongue like a frog, and she keeps saying ribbit after just about every sentence she says. Anyways, they started running or hopping. Ida made it the 50 meters in 3.04 seconds, while Suyu made it in 5.58 seconds. Both of them did really well. Next up was Uraraka and Ojiro. I watched Uraraka tap each article of clothing she had on, making them all weightless so she could run faster. I smiled at Uraraka, then I looked at Ojiro. He was getting ready to push himself forward with his tail, which was one of the few things he could do, in a test like this, to get the best results. I know both of their quirks since Ojiro's is pretty obvious, and Uraraka told me what her quirk was. Ojiro's quirk was a tail, and Uraraka's quirk was zero gravity. Ojiro's quirk is pretty straightforward, and Uraraka's quirk, from the name, is pretty straightforward too. The two of them were ready to run. Then their test started. Ojiro finished in 5.49 seconds, and Uraraka finished in 7.15 seconds. They did great. After Uraraka and Ojiro were Aoyama and Mina. Aoyama turned away from the ending line. I'm pretty sure I know what he was doing. It's pretty easy to tell he has a quirk that has to do with his stomach, but I also saw him in action during the entrance exam. His quirk is a navel laser. The name is pretty self-explanatory. He shoots a laser out of his belly button. Mina was stretching and getting ready to run. She also seemed to be getting ready to do something with her feet. I'm pretty sure her quirk has something to do with a chemical of some sort. Maybe acid? She could have stored up acid for her quirk that mutates her body, making her pink. It's a far-fetched theory, but it's not impossible. The test started, and Mina made it to the end without stopping in 4.27 seconds while sliding on acid. I guess my theory of her quirk was right. Aoyama had to stop in the middle, though, because he can't shoot his laser for too long without getting a stomachache. His ending time was 5.51 seconds. Their quirks and the ways they use them are so cool. After them was a boy named Kaminari, and another boy named Kirishima. Kaminari seemed stressed. I'm pretty sure I heard him talking to Kirishima earlier about his quirk being electrification. That's amazing, but it doesn't really help in a test like this. Kirishima seemed a bit nervous too, but he seemed less nervous than Kaminari. It looked like he had faith in himself. That's always a good thing. They both got into running positions, and their test started. Kaminari got to the end in 6.43 seconds, while Kirishima got to the end in 5.59 seconds. When Kirishima got to the end, he knocked his fists together and hardened his arms. Seems like he has a quirk that hardens his body. I would speculate more, but there's a time and a place for that, and it's not here. Next up were Koda and Sato. Koda was preparing to run. I'm pretty sure his quirk has nothing to do with physical activity, but I could be wrong. I'd actually seen him on my way to UA. He'd been crouched down next to a stray cat, and he was whispering to it. The cat seemed to understand him, so I think his quirk has something to do with animals. I haven't seen Sato before, but he seemed strong. He was digging into his pockets for something. After a few seconds, he seemed to find what he was looking for. It looked like a sugar packet. Maybe his quirk converts sugar into strength or something like that. After eating the contents of the sugar packet, Sato got into a running position. Their test started. Koda finished with a time of 5.42 seconds, and Sato finished with a time of 3.56 seconds. I was right about Sato's quirk. I think it's like a sugar rush, or similar at the very least. The next test was between Shoji and Jiro. Shoji was getting into a running position, same as Jiro. Shoji and Jiro seemed to both have mutation quirks. Jiro had headphone jacks for earlobes, and Shoji had a bunch of arms with different body parts on different arms. Feet, hands, mouth, ears, etc. Jiro's quirk seems to have something to do with sounds. She probably has good hearing. Shoji's quirk is probably called dupla arms or something similar, since he has a bunch of arms. Both quirks are very useful for scouting and hero work. They were ready to run when their test started. Shoji finished in 8.47 seconds, while Jiro finished in 6.24 seconds. Shoji was probably slower because of the extra weight his arms add, but he doesn't have to be fast to be a hero. Jiro seems to just be fast in general, not quirk related. Both of them would make excellent heroes. Next was Sero and Tokoyami. Sero was stretching in preparation to start the test, while Tokoyami talked to his quirk. Sero seems to have a quirk that deals with his elbows. Now that I'm looking, his elbows kind of look like tape dispensers. Maybe he can shoot tape out of his elbows, kind of like that superhero from that pre-Quirk movie who shoots webs out of his wrists. His name's Spider-Man. Tokoyami seems to have a kind of bird mutation quirk with a bird-like shadow. It seems like the shadow is sentient, able to think for itself, and I think I heard him call it, I don't know if the quirk has a gender, Dark Shadow. Sero and Tokoyami's test started. Tokoyami was being pushed forwards by Dark Shadow, and Sero was pulling himself forward by wrapping his tape around the timer at the end of the 50 meters. Sero finished in 4.26 seconds, while Tokoyami finished in 5.32 seconds. Their test was really cool to watch. After Sero and Tokoyami was Todoroki and Hagakure. Todoroki was getting himself ready for the test. I'm pretty sure he was getting ready to use his ice to push him forward. Todoroki Shoto's quirk is called Half Hot, Half Cold. It was advertised online since Endeavor mentioned it in one of his few interviews. He's able to produce fire and ice from his body. Hagakure's quirk is pretty easy to figure out. She was invisible. She looked like she was stretching, but it was hard to tell since I couldn't really see her. Hagakure seemed to get into a running position while Todoroki stayed in his position to shoot his ice. Their test started. Todoroki did exactly what I thought he'd do, shooting his ice behind him to push himself forward. Hagakure just ran, but she was pretty fast. Todoroki's time was 3.53 seconds, and Hagakure's time was 5.02 seconds. Both of their quirks are really cool. I can't wait to see what they do in the other tests. The next names called were mine and Kachan's. I sighed as I walked forwards I sighed as I walked towards the starting line and started stretching. Kachan did the same before getting into a position that would let him use his explosions to propel him forwards. I met eyes with Hitoshi. He gave me 2 thumbs up and a small smile. I smiled back and focused on the test. Our test started. I was sprinting forward and I could hear Kachan's explosions. Behind me? How am I ahead of Kachan? As I passed the line, I heard my time. After my time was announced, Kachan's was announced. My time was 3.40 seconds, and Kachan's time was 4.13 seconds. I quickly crouched down as I heard Kachan's explosions coming towards me. Nope, I'm not dying today. I rolled forwards toward Aizawa and Hitoshi, and I turned to look at Kachan, who was fuming mad. Kachan was yelling, but I wasn't listening. I glared at Kachan and he shut his mouth, and his eyes blew wide. I stood up and walked towards Ida and Uraraka, who started congratulating me. The last test was between Momo Yaoyorozu and Mineta. Mineta was cracking his knuckles while glancing at Yaoyorozu, and he was he drooling? I really hope that he's the one to get expelled, even if his quirk is good for hero work. I haven't seen his quirk yet, but I'm pretty sure it's only good for capturing a villain. He seems like a horrible person who probably won't change. Momo Yaoyorozu's quirk isn't advertised often, but my dad took me to the Yaoyorozu house when he was asked to analyze Momo's quirk. Her quirk is called creation. It allows her to form her lipids into different non-living objects. She used her quirk to make a scooter. When their test started, I was ready to kill Mineta. As Yaoyorozu started moving on her scooter, Mineta used his quirk, which was sticky balls. Ew, that's disgusting, but it fits him. And he used it to stick to Yaoyorozu's back. Yaoyorozu looked very uncomfortable, but she continued on. I'll talk to her when her test is over. Yaoyorozu's time was 5.23 seconds, and Mineta was given a time of 5.32 seconds. He was refusing to let go of Yaoyorozu, and before Aizawa could step in, I walked over to Mineta and Yaoyorozu and pulled Mineta and his sticky balls off of Yaoyorozu. You can't just touch people without consent. You can clearly see she's uncomfortable, Mineta. Don't you ever lay a single finger on another woman when your mindset is still on being a pervert. You hear me? I said, glaring at Mineta from where I stood over him. He nodded his head nervously as he scrambled to his feet and ran away from me. Are you okay, Yaoyorozu? I asked, turning to look at Yaoyorozu. She nodded. Thank you, Izuku, she said, bowing slightly. I just smiled and said, it's no problem. He was being a pervert, and he needed to stop. Thank you for that, Izuku, Aizawa said, and I smiled. Hitoshi told Aizawa that I didn't like to be called Midoriya. Anyways, next test. The next test was a grip strength test. Now, this was a test I wasn't very excited for since I've never been strong, and I knew I'd get a low score on it. So, imagine my surprise when I got 356.3 grams. I was even more surprised when I found out that the only person who scored higher than me was Shoji, who had multiple arms. Kachan tried to explode me again, but I jumped out of the way. Eraserhead scolded him again. After grip strength, we had to do a standing long jump, which everyone except Mineta cleared easily. I also thought I wouldn't be able to clear the sandbox, but I proved myself wrong. I cleared the sandbox by a long shot. I was really proud of myself since, a few months ago, I could barely make it over the mats at the gym a few times before getting winded. The next test was repeated side steps. I really thought I wasn't going to do well in this test, but I tried my best. When it was my turn, I stood in the middle of the lines and put my hands on my head. I closed my eyes just as Aizawa told me to start. I hadn't realized how fast I was stepping until afterwards when Hitoshi walked over to me and whispered, You're fast. You got second in that test. Mineta only beat you by a few seconds. I felt a pang of pride go through my chest at that. Maybe that pang of pride was me being gay for Hitoshi, but whatever, it's still a pang of pride. Our next test was toe touches. I had a good feeling about this test since I've been working on my flexibility. I joined gymnastics 10 months ago, so I could be more flexible. Yoga too. The classes were so fun. All the moves they taught us were really useful, and in yoga it definitely helped me both mentally and physically. I was really good at this test. The next test was another test I was excited for. We had to do sit-ups. Again, my flexibility helped me do more at a time. Once we finished those tests, we had to do a distance run. Basically, Eraserhead made us run 6 laps around the PE grounds. I wasn't particularly excited about this test, but don't get me wrong. I love running. Runs help me calm down and clear my head, but I'm not that fast. We all lined up behind the line Aizawa directed us to, and before he sent us off running, he turned to Hitoshi and whispered something in his ear. Hitoshi nodded before walking towards the building. After Hitoshi was inside, Eraserhead yelled for us to start. I didn't waste a second and started running, while everyone else stared in surprise before trying to catch up to me. After 5 minutes, I finished all 6 laps, and Eraserhead looked at me, incredulous. As I stood up from my crouch position I'd taken once I finished, a water bottle was shoved into my hands. It was Hitoshi who was pushing the bottle into my hands. He smirked at me as I took it and drank some. Thanks, I said, smiling at him. No problem. You need it more than I do anyway, he said, smiling back. I mean, you basically just ran 6 miles in 5 minutes. I choked on the water I was drinking. What? Yeah, the others are only on their first or second laps, Hitoshi said, as if he wasn't surprised. I was reeling. Did my dad give me some speed quirk while I was sleeping? Did my dad do something to me? I'm quirkless. There's no way I could run that fast. If people think I lied about being quirkless, I'll be ruined. I didn't, though. What the fuck is going on? Why does everything happen to me? Does the world hate me? I started hyperventilating. Hitoshi noticed immediately. He started to talk softly to me, trying to get me to calm down. It was working. When I was aware of my surroundings again, 15 minutes had passed. I had my head in Hitoshi's lap, and all of my classmates were staring at me, holding back laughter. No, they were concerned. I turned my head away from them and buried my face in Hitoshi's stomach. He was carting his fingers through my hair gently. After a few minutes, I felt good enough to stand up. Aizawa asked me if I was sure if I wanted to continue, and I said yes. I can't show any more weakness. Our next test was the ball toss Kachan had demonstrated before we started the other tests. I zoned out while everyone was taking their turns, so I don't know how far each person threw. The only person's throw I know the distance of is Uraraka's throw, because she got infinity and everyone was talking about it. Before I was called to throw, Aizawa called Hitoshi to throw. I was confused, but I paid attention to Hitoshi's turn. He threw 60 meters. I smiled. He doesn't have a physical enhancement quirk then. Then, I was called to throw. I took the ball from Aizawa and stepped inside the circle. I closed my eyes as I prepared to throw. I started to think about my father. I started pretending that I'd be throwing this ball at my father. That got me fired up. I opened my eyes, and for a second, I thought my eyes started glowing red and green. I drew my arm back and threw as hard as I could. The ball left a cloud of dust as it flew through the air. The ball went over the trees and even farther. The ball was out of sight. A few seconds passed before Aizawa said, 3 kilometers. Everyone's eyes, including mine, widened. My father definitely did something to me, because if Hitoshi, who doesn't have any kind of physical quirk, can only throw a ball 60 meters, there's no possible way for me, a quirkless nobody, to throw a ball well over that distance. What did he do to me? Did he give me a strength enhancement? I stopped myself before I could start hyperventilating again. All of a sudden, I felt someone behind me. I turned around and I saw a man with long white hair, green eyes like mine, and ghostly pale skin. He looked like my uncle. He reached forward. I looked at his hand, and I grabbed it. It was freezing cold, and I felt a chill rack my body as my eyes widened and I collapsed. All I could see after that was black. Okay, that's where I'm stopping for right now. I know you guys are going to be mad at me for doing that, but there's a scene change after that, so that's like the best place for me to stop. Yeah, so I'm going to go die now. I have to go export this. I might do a yap session today. Probably not, though. I think I'm counting this as my yap session today for my podficking. I also posted a new fic today, so if you guys want to hop on AO3 and check that out, that would be very well appreciated. Yeah. So this is almost 30 minutes, so I'm gonna shut up and let you guys go. So I hope you guys enjoyed this part, and I hope you have a great day, night, whatever. Bye!